recording. Okay. We'll call meeting of the ASCC November 9th. Please call the roll.
Yes, Chair War. Vice Chair Breen,
Here.
Commissioner Dixon,
Here.
and Commissioner Vaughn.
Here. Thank you. Second item on tonight's agenda is oral communications. This is where persons wishing to address the ASCC on subjects not on tonight's agenda may do so. Anyone in the room? No? Anyone online, Darcy? Okay. We'll move on to item 3A, architectural review for a rear addition and hardscaping at an existing single-family residence at 198 Paloma Road. I'll be recusing myself. Bill Gutz from my office will be representing the owner, and the owner, Bubba, is here. So I'll be leaving the room. You guys could come and get me after that.
Want that, or do you want to go and we'll see you at the next meeting?
Well, I think, don't we have minutes?
Do we have minutes?
We have minutes in our agenda. But we don't have minutes on the agenda.
Right?
It does show minutes, but it's in the next portion of the meeting.
Okay,
So I won't come out and get you.
okay.
All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Paul Keitle-Hinsey, consultant planner with the town. And this,
For me, can you speak up a little bit, please?
sorry about that.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Keitle-Hinsey, consultant planner with the town. And this item before you tonight is the architectural review of a rear addition, hardscaping for a rear patio, exterior modifications and lighting at the existing single-family residence at 198 Paloma Road. The property is located at the end of Paloma Road, which offshoots off of Westridge Drive in the north part of town. And the residence itself is oriented so that the rear, where the area of work is located, is facing west. And the project is shown in the rendering here, where you can see the lower area of the residence that steps down at the rear be filled out with the addition area, as well as a rear patio being added at the rear, and some exterior treatments and trellis canopies being added. So the area of work, again, is located at the rear of the residence, close to the existing developed area on site. And the project complies with all applicable zoning standards, including floor area, impervious surface, and 85% of max floor area. Shown here is an enlarged site plan where you can see the impervious surface on site, the existing impervious surface, including the driveway at the front, is on the right side in purple, as well as the site paths in brown, and the new concrete patio area is at the rear on the left-hand side, shown in light pink. Shown here is the existing lower floor plan, which includes the ADU on the left-hand side, shown in pink. And on the right-hand side, the upper story deck is shown as a dotted dash line. And this project will be filling out to the extent of that deck on the lower floor. So shown here is the lower floor plan where the new addition area shown in blue will be filling up to that extent of the deck. And the rear will include a new stone over concrete patio that includes a hot tub and stairways on either side. And the addition area is 663 square feet. The existing floor plan will remain largely unchanged. There is a proposed staircase that will go down to the rear yard. And on the two sides of the elevations of the residence, you can see the profile of the patio at the bottom with the lower area being filled out with new floor area, as well as some of the new trellis canopies being labeled as well. On the left-hand side, you can see labeled clearly. The front elevation will include no changes. And shown here is the rear elevation and the rear patio area shown at the bottom with stairways on either side, and the new lower floor area right up above. All proposed colors and materials will match in residence and comply with the town's LRB standards for light reflectivity. And the photos here show the existing residence at the rear. There is no new landscaping proposed as a part of this project. There are no tree removals proposed and no site development permit is required. Although the project does increase the impervious surface on site, there is a remaining 8,273 square feet of impervious surface. The project does include new lighting shown at the lower floor plan in yellow and blue, the new lighting fixtures, as well as a couple of the existing ceiling mounted fixtures shown in green. And the lighting does comply with all the town's standards and guidelines. And although there's no new lighting proposed at the first floor, there are existing fixtures shown in red. This project was noticed within a 300-foot radius of the site on October 17th. The applicant has also conducted their own neighbor outreach, and to date, staff has not received any comments or concerns. Staff recommends that the ASCC review and approve the architectural review for the rear addition, hardscaping at 198 Palmer Road, subject to conditions of approval. I and the applicant are here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners? No? No? What about Carter's team? Do you guys have anything you would like to present?
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm Bill Gutzel with CJW Architecture. And as far as the presentation, I think that everything has been summarized quite well by the planning staff. And I appreciate their effort in putting forth a nice presentation there. This is a small addition that the owners are very much anxious to get completed and moving forward. And so we would appreciate your assistance in moving things forward here. Thank you. If you have any other questions, please.
Great, thank you. Any questions of the design team? Okay.
Not
Nope.
for me.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we need to go to what? Yeah, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this project? That leaves you. Anyone online? Okay, then we'll go to the commissioners. Lance, do you want to start with your comments?
Sorry, but I like it.
Okay.
I think that's all I need to say. I think it's a nice fit, a nice use. I stood out on top of the hill this afternoon and looked and walked down on the driveway, and it's secluded. I think I'd love to have that spot.
Thank you. Gina?
Similar comment from me. I think it's a nice project and seems very appropriate from kind of a massing and visibility perspective. So
Thank you.
no meaningful comments other than
I
that.
also agree, and I think that there's very little off-site impact, in the back. So, I also approve of it. So what do you guys, can we get a motion?
Want me to make?
If we approve as submitted.
Second,
I'll second that.
all those in favor? Aye.
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 There we go. Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. And
Not every project is that fast, but.
we're gonna do them then. So, ASCC will return at 7:30 to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. And so, yes, we'll be back in an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you. See everybody then.
Good evening, everybody. This is a joint special meeting of the ASCC and the Planning Commission to address a proposal that we will share background on, for which views and thoughts will be solicited. There won't be any decision made nor requested at this meeting, but rather this is a listening session and the first bite of this proposal. I'd like to ask Carter Wark, who is chair of the ASCC, if he has remarks before we ask if there will be a staff report.
I don't think there is. I think we've got is a presentation, from, Parks and Rec with some support, from the administration. This really is about, gaining an understanding, soliciting, some input. There isn't an application, there's, not really a, proposal, there's some thoughts. And, I want to keep this positive. I don't think that there's any disagreement about the need, for, for toilets, and support, for baseball. So really what I'd do is, turn it over, to, Parks and Rec and administration as you deem fit. Karen, to help us understand what you're thinking. Then we'll solicit, public input, online and in the room. And then I think what we'll end up with, is, some level of thought from us. I don't know that, I know we won't end up with any probably real consensus. But, what I do think you'll end up with, is, some guidance on, what we're feeling, and what the potentials are. I don't want to, this to take a long time. But what I also, want, from the ASCC and the Planning Commission, is, I want to give you our thanks, for your hard work so far and what it's going to take to do this, because, it is, like our jobs, volunteer.
I also want to acknowledge that, and this is special, that a committee is coming up with an affirmative idea for our project and is presenting. Understand that it's a special committee at the town manager. I know the town manager has put time and effort into some of the organization and review and bringing the issue before also the town council. And we appreciate that. It's one of the things that makes this town special. And we appreciate your bringing this issue here before us. So with that, if you can take us through the presentation.
Do you want to do roll call?
Marcy, if you'd like to.
Roll call?
Roll call is always a good place to start.
Yeah. I'll do it. Okay, we'll start with the Planning Commission. Hold on. Chair Targ,
Present.
Vice Chair Brothers,
I'm here.
Ronnie Krasinski.
Here.
Karen Batra.
Here.
And Doug Morse.
Here.
Okay, ASCC Chair War, Vice Chair Breen, Gina Dixon. Here. And last but not least, on the end, Lance Vaughn.
Here.
Great, thank you. So yes, we are here tonight. I'll kick off some direction, and thank you all for making time. I was told you weren't meeting enough, so I wanted to get you back here, but what a great way to kick off what I hope is a more productive and engaging dialogue with the Planning Commission and the ASCC on projects that are not just private projects, which you typically see, but public projects. We do value your input. So this idea started many, many, many years ago. I don't think anyone just woke up one day and said, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have a bathroom at the Ford Field and Dorothy Ford open space? But like many things, it just didn't rise to the surface. And many of you know, I started, Darcy Smith, town manager, a few months ago, and I learned quickly that this wasn't included in our budget. So I just want to tell you a little bit about how we got here. So the town budget, as many of you know, is quite constrained. And the town council meets in the spring and discusses the budget, and then it gets approved in June. And this was removed from the budget because the town has some other priorities that we're working on right now. But I started, and I quickly realized after meeting with the Parks and Recreation Committee Chair, Patty Dews, and the Vice Chair, Karen Askey, that this bathroom was overlooked in the sense that we have a grant. So the state, through actually a per capita bond measure that was approved, I think in 2018, gave every town and county a certain amount of money. Our lucky number was $180,000, which is no tiny sum. And then in 2021, I think the council met and discussed this and decided to apply it to the Ford Field bathroom. So that's how we got here 4 years later. So I found that grant and I started talking to the states, to the State Department of Parks and Recreation. They said, guess what, Darcy, we're really sorry, but there is a time limit on this grant, about 2 years out. You'll hear Karen talk about. And I went, uh-oh, that means 2 years. That's not a lot of time in construction world. You know this. You look at a lot of construction projects and you know how fast 2 years goes by. And we have to have the project essentially completed at the end of 2027 in order to get the funds. And we just don't want to, many of you have worked on grants know if you blow through those deadlines, it's bad. So I talked to them and they said, we've extended it a few times because again, they approved it, the bond measure 2018, call for projects 2020. So we are against a hard deadline here. But the genesis of it is that the Parks and Rec Committee decided to take this on and look at costs and design. That's what we're here to tonight. Now, I just want to emphasize, we are early in on the process. In case you're thinking, whoa, why are we looking at this so? You're early and we will return to you. So this is by no means an application that you're reviewing. There's no detailed site plans and architectural plans. We're literally way up here talking about 3 potential locations that Karen will step through. But I want to emphasize that what you're going to tell us tonight will allow us to move on to the next stage. Okay, my notes, which is a more detailed analysis of the building sites and the design with estimated costs. So some of what you're here tonight, this might cost more, save us money. We really don't know until we hire a landscape architect and a civil engineer. You know, the folks who prepare all the plans that you look at, and that will allow us to look better, more at costs. So what we want here is high-level feedback. We still have 3 options that will progress to the next stage. So I don't want to say it's like a pro cons of the different options, but that's what we're looking for. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Karen, who's working on this. But I just want to emphasize this isn't the last time it will come to you, and there's no decisions being made on like an actual application. So in case you hear words like general plan compliance and, you know, council discretion, just know we will come back to you. I don't anticipate this starting construction, to be honest, for probably 9 to 12 months. So you have time to shape this. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Darcy. And as you heard, I'm Karen Askey, and I want to introduce some other people that have been very involved with our Ford Field research and analysis. You know the omnipotent Patty Dews, right here, our chair. Over here in the front row is Steve Erickson. Steve is our newest member to Parks and Rec, and he's also on the board of the Alpine West Men's Little League. So it's a great team to put to the Parks and Rec with the Little League together to work on this project. David Bailey is over here in the second row, and we formed a subcommittee, which was David and I, to look at Ford Field, right there. And, but there's two people not here that I do want to acknowledge. One is Lindsey Bowen, and I don't know if you know him, but he's been a longtime Parks and Rec member along with other committees. He has been working on trying to get bathrooms and an updated snack shack at Ford Field for over 30 years, just to let you know how long this has been going on. And he cares very passionately about it. And unfortunately, some health issues are keeping him from being here. And then John Myers, you also know, he was very involved in the fundraising in 2012, which will cover the fundraising for the community when the field renovation and stands and such like that was redone in 2013. Okay, so as you know, I might have trivia night on the brain, so I thought we'd start with a question. According to the Almanac, when did Portola Valley install the major sewer line to service the Sequoias? Does anyone have a guess? No, you can't play, Patty. Guess, somebody guess.
1952.
Any other guesses? Okay, well, Carter's closest. The answer is 1960. So here we are 65 years later, still talking about flush toilets. So let's see if this will work. No, still won't work. All right. Now you guys can follow along because I gave you copies of the presentation, but I do appreciate it if you don't fast forward and look through it. I know you already have, but I'll just preface that. So let's go over what we want to cover tonight. First, we want to stress, and Darcy already did this, that the Planning Commission and the ASCC are essential to our town government. You may be feeling underutilized recently, but our town council and our new town manager want to change that. This is a start. We'd like to review the presentation to town council from October 22nd and what was agreed on. And my apologies to those of you that are having to watch the rerun. We appreciate your patience. We'd like to receive feedback from you all prior to moving to concept design, location analysis, and obtaining cost estimates. We want to get you in at the beginning of this. So things like, have you had any relevant experience to share? What red flags do you see? What should we be move forward? And by getting your input now, we can create efficient, economical, and expeditious teamwork. And as Darcy said, this is not a meeting to finalize a specific location or design. A lot of trouble moving my screen up there. Okay, so let's quickly go over what happened on October 22nd. The town council decided that we should move forward into a concept design phase and obtain rough cost estimates to replace the portable restrooms and snack shack at Dorothy Ford Park and open space. The council said, yes, you can consider the current site where the snack shack is as one alternative. The town said, yes, you should designate this as a Portola Valley Fund project and also accept other donations to initiate town work on the project. The town also said, yes, please involve the Planning Commission and ASCC as they may have important input which will expedite the process. And yes, please inform and update appropriate committees as we move forward. So
I thought the town council also had a study session, but you're saying they came up with 5 points? How do you do that in a study session? I'm just curious.
we asked about those points and the council members that were present, Craig Taylor was not there, but the rest of them all agreed. They gave us the direction to move forward on those. Okay? All right. So let's do a quick visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself driving down Alpine Road from 280. You see the quaint Welcome to Portola Valley sign just past Ladera Church. And on your left, you take in views of beautiful open space and majestic oaks. There are hikers along the trail and cyclists riding by. A bit further down, you see little leaguers on the field with families and fans in the stands. You think to yourself, how Norman Rockwell, how bucolic. And then you come to this. That's right, 3 not so well-maintained porta potties in a dilapidated snack shack. And those garbage cans aren't overflowing in this picture, so this photo was taken on a good day. I do hope that all of you have been by the site to check things out for yourself. Enough said. Goodness. Sorry, this is really... okay, so let's take a quick look to gather our bearings with this aerial map. Alpine Road is on your left and the parking lot is in the lower right. The sewer line runs down the right side of the road. The snack shack back corner is about 40 feet from the white fog line. This is just to give you some perspective. So the snack shack back is about 40 feet from this white line. The electrical box, the junction box, is about 33 feet from the white fog line. There is a water connection on the shack as well as a water fountain nearby. The porta potties and the garbage cans are over here. They run along the upper left edge of the parking lot. So this filled-in area here represents the overall space between the back deck of the shack and the edge of the porta potties up here. And that's the shack itself with the decks is about 255 square feet, and the porta potties footprint is about 70 square feet. And then there's a fair amount of unused space in between. And we doubt anyone really lingers in that space as the odor will take away your appetite. And it's also important to note that the snack shack does have electricity and water as we venture forward. Why is it so tough for me to? Okay, there we go. All right, so speaking of the snack shack, we'd like to share some important information that you may not know. While it may not look like much, the snack shack is a true gem of Ford Field. When researching the history of the snack shack with our planning department, we could not find much other than it's been around a really long time, probably around 50 years, and it's in need of significant repairs and upgrades. In speaking with current Little League families, as well as alumni, it was stressed that the snack shack is central to the community experience, as it's open every game during the spring season to all residents and visitors in our community. It's also open at times during the fall season. I stopped by there just on Sunday when there were the championship tournaments going on. The shack serves both simple snacks like sunflower seeds, Cracker Jack, chips, candy, sodas, but also post-game meals. A valued tradition is that both teams, the opposing teams, stay for post-game and have dinner together and socialize. Strong fellowships blossom due to the snack shack. And I'd like to share a quote from a Little League parent that really sums things up. She told me, "You know, I am one of the biggest advocates for a permanent restroom at Ford Field, but if gaining a restroom comes at the expense of losing the snack shack, I say, don't change a thing and keep the snack shack." That's how important it is. A key question is where to build. Parks and Rec reviewed 3 potential areas for I'm sorry. I skipped a slide. Let's move on to potential building locations at Dorothy Ford Park and open space. We'd like to start with this slide that you should be familiar with. Thank you to Nona Cherriello, one of our wonderful, amazing resident volunteers, for putting this slide together. On the left, we see all the recreation and services that Ford Park offers, from majestic open space to baseball to hiking and walking, and now even parking. Moving on to the right, it's easy to see the unusual parcel shape, creek and road setbacks, and the easement that's there. So you can see that this area within the creek setback and the road setback is where we could build. Okay, so the question is, where can we build? Parks and Rec reviewed 3 potential areas for placement of a new building. None are ideal due to varying reasons. We looked at using the existing area on which the snack shack has resided for many years. That's number 1 right here. But we know that resides within the 75-foot scenic corridor setback. However, it is important to note that the town can build a capital improvement project wherever it designates. And a key difference is that this is a public facility that serves all, not a private residence on private property, which is not open to the community at large. The key question is how we preserve the view shed. We also considered 2 I'm trigger happy, 2 spots that could meet the setback requirements. Number 2 is this space over here in the passive open space, but on the right field line. And number 3 would be, there's a sliver in the parking lot where we could build. Wait, did I just go backwards? There we go. Okay. All right, so this chart summarizes our thoughts when we reviewed and discussed these potential areas. While the existing area is within the road setback, it does have its benefits. Quickly, it utilizes the existing area. There is something already there with the picnic area. It has existing electrical and water hookups. It's closer to the sewer line, further from the creek, which helps for preventive measures should the line leak or break. We know that we get improved aesthetics from what we have today. And for those of you that may not know, in 1999, there was a variance granted to Mid-Penn for the bathroom up on Skyline to build within the setback. Now that's different because again, that's not town property, but that was done. And so that is some history that you may want to know of. And the other thing is with our evacuation plan, that area of Alpine Road from West Ridge to Ladera calls for a 5-foot buffer that would then make the road wide enough to make it 2 lanes to get out. So there's definitely room to build there because as I mentioned, the electrical junction box is 33 feet from the white line. So we know that there's room there.
Could I just ask a clarifying question? Where on Skyline are you talking about?
The Spring Ridge parking lot at the very top
Okay.
of Windy Hill.
Thanks.
It's tucked in there. It's a small bathroom. I think Carter may be familiar. We were on the committee maybe that granted the variance. Yeah. And then last, just because we're putting it in the existing spot, we think that there's probably lower infrastructure costs, particularly related to sewer and electrical with PG&E. Okay. Our big concerns with building in the passive open space area is ADA accessibility and concession delivery needs that would change the nature of that area. We'd probably have to install a new entrance from Alpine Road and a concrete pathway to the restroom. We need to better understand infrastructure costs as well because it's further away from existing utilities and there may be landscaping issues. Will we have to remove trees? How do we create necessary shade and such? And if we build in the parking lot, there is a limited area which adheres to the setback requirements, but this concept may impact the number of parking spots. And parking, as we know, is a precious commodity in Portola Valley these days. Current thinking calls for the building to be 20 to 25 feet away from the outfield fence due to home runs hit there and safety reasons. Also, it may impact aesthetics to the view shed and views to the baseball diamond. So as you can see, our options on where to build are extremely limited and the placement is tricky. To that end, we feel we should keep the existing site where the snack shack is in our consideration set as we move forward, and our town council agreed. And I should point out, it might be possible to move it back more from Alpine Road, but it still be within the setback as we're thinking. All right. Okay, so I wanted to sort of share a little bit about our restroom exploration journey because we're looking that a lot of people have opinions about restrooms and toilets. So one of our first ideas is that we wanted to offer a vault restrooms similar to what's at Windy Hill parking lot. Patty and I talked with a Jason Lynn. He's an engineering and construction department manager at Mid-Peninsula Regional. We learned that Mid-Penn uses precast concrete buildings and its supplier is CXT Construction, a division of LB Foster. We also learned that vault toilets require a 150-foot creek setback, and due to the odor they exude, they are not appropriate for areas where people may linger nearby for a couple of hours. So on to Plan B. We then looked at other designs by CXT and happened upon the combo restroom building, which in our minds kills two birds with one stone. This is a fairly common design at ballparks. You may have seen the one at Burgess Park in Menlo Park or the one in Palo Alto at Middlefield Road at the ballpark there. And we think that precast buildings could save on construction costs and time. And as we know, time is of the essence for us, as well as reducing overall noise and dust from construction. So this is a Parks and Rec thought that we want to share, which is we feel that a combination building may be a wiser investment in the long run than restroom only. We know the Snack Shack needs major updates. We're going to have to do it soon. Why not do it now? Because we get economies of scale. The product cost is not twice as much. We save certainly on infrastructure costs since we're doing one building instead of two. And when you think about the two buildings plus the unused space between it, we may end up with a smaller overall footprint. The other question we have, and this is something we need to see designs for, is what is the impact on the view shed by having two buildings in Ford Field versus one? We don't know. We have to check it out. As well, we think that if we update the concessions area there would be the potential for greater use of the park because the facility would offer more. Okay, so this is a concept example. This is not a final design, but we wanted to give you the look and feel of this is a CXT building. This is what an exterior could look like, very Portola Valley-ish. And it's fire safe. It could be aesthetically built to the surroundings. And I wanted to calm Dana that it will be night sky compliant. Over on the right, what you see, is two ADA compliant restrooms. They're over here on the left in this sketch. And then over here, the same size is the concessions area with the little concessions window. And in the center is a storage room for janitorial supplies, and there's a hot water heater here. Dimensions of this are 19.8 by, oh my goodness, I'm having 20 by 17, so 340 square feet. So that gives you an idea of something that could fulfill the concessions and the restrooms. I know I'm going. So yeah, and in terms of the cost of this, it's approximately $228,000 for the building to be delivered and put down on the concrete slab. And Portola Valley would have to obviously create the concrete slab and get all the hookups ready, and then it just goes in. It's probably not just goes in. I'm sure there's a little more work than that. So Darcy mentioned this, but I thought we just covered the timeline of what's gone on. In 2013, we did receive a grant from the state, and that grant was for $232,000 for a Ford Field renovation project. The overall cost was $512,000 and change. And this is how the funding worked. The grant covered oh my goodness. The grant covered 45% of it. Alpine West Menlo Little League was very generous with its donation of $104,000, which was 22% of it. We had a single matching grant donor for $100,000. There was a campaign to get community donations, which was $59,000 or 11.5%. And the town ended up spending $8,700 for 1.5% of the total cost. So in December of 21, we applied for another grant and we were approved for $180,000. And the grant is to be used to plan, design, install, and operate a new restroom building at town's baseball field, Ford Field. So what happened after that? Well, there was a lot of digging out due to COVID. There was uncertainty because Ford Park then got placed into the housing element and things put on hold. As you all know, we've had a staffing shortage. So things didn't move very quickly. Our former Public Works Director, Howard Young, did apply for an extension in 2024, and we got till 2028, but the state, as Darcy said, there's no more. All right, so we realize that at this point in time, Portola Valley does not have the financial wherewithal to support the project with general funds. But we also don't want to lose that $180,000 state grant, and our window of time is closing. It's important to remember that the town raised $15 million in private donations in 2005 to fund the town center. We have very generous heavy hitters in this town, and it's been 20 years since we've had any large fundraising campaign. Many new families have joined our town, and our time is now. So how do we fund this project without touching general funds? We believe we can do it, and there's going to have to be a little trust among all of us. So first of all, we have the $180,000 grant. Alpine West Menlo Little League has pledged $60,000 or more if their fundraising in the spring goes well. And this is for a joint concessions restroom building. So thank you, Alpine West Menlo Little League. We also have been in the process of soliciting private donations, and I'm happy to say we do have one lead donor who is very committed to this and is looking at maybe a six-figure donation so we can incent other donations. But we also want community engagement. And to that end, yes, we need some big lead donors, but we'd love to see 250 or more total donors from the community. So it's not only, getting those lead donors, but it's about participation. The other thing is Alpine Road was named a priority conservation area recently, and there's an opportunity to explore a grant there. I'm going to say opportunity. We don't know if that will go anywhere. We also have $17,000 unallocated in our Parks and Rec Fund that can be applied. And we're also very proud of the fact that we were under budget for our town picnic and Zots to Tots expenses. And we took in a little more revenue than planned because we had a fabulous turnout for Zots to Tots. So that net is about $15,000. So we just wanted to point that out to the council, that we're trying to save money so we can spend it maybe on better things. Okay. So we have a process for expediency, efficiency, and economizing. So as you know, we met with council on 10/22. We're meeting with you all today to get your input. From there, we also, and Darcy can explain, we have to go back to the council to move forward and unlock the grant. There's paperwork, there's a vote, there's things like that that need to happen. From there, we would hire appropriate professionals, a structural engineer, a landscape designer, to really bear down and get us the location analysis, concept designs, and more accurate cost estimates. All of that we come back to the council, to you guys, to appropriate committees. We get public feedback on all of this. And while this is all going on, we are fundraising. We are trying very hard to make sure that we have those pledges in place to make this work. And of course, we need to finish the construction by January of 2028. So we have some guiding principles for success. We need to keep this simple. There can be absolutely no scope creep. We have to stay on track, time critical to complete, as we've mentioned, in early 2028. We have to strive for fiscally responsible decisions, and we need to work as a team. We have the council, the staff, the committees, the residents, the Little League. We all have to be on the same side. Obviously, there's no use of the general fund coffers. We want to be as transparent as possible with ongoing communication regarding the project status. It's very important to recognize donors and the community efforts to support this project. And like our Little Leaguers, we need to model good sportsmanship, collaborative efforts, focus on success, and a trust in your teammates. Okay, so we don't know what we don't know, and we'd love your feedback. What potential issues do you see? I know there are things with ADA accessibility that you probably know better than we do, sewer infrastructure, electrical infrastructure, other things. And we want all this input prior to meeting with a designer and engineer. And we want to get this right the first time. We don't want to be thrown any curveballs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Clearly, a lot of thought and effort has gone into the project, and been thinking about the bathroom for the last 65 years, and what did it say? It's time to go. So before we take public comment, I'd like to ask if there are members of either commission who have requests for clarification of the points that have been made before we take it to the public.
Why don't you guys do the planning commission first? Why don't you guys do the planning commission first and the ASCC will come up behind? Probably be the same questions.
Commissioner Brothers, you're right here and on deck.
Here we go.
So
This is clarifying questions, not responses necessarily. Okay. I felt like procedurally this is a little confusing, but I felt like you used bathrooms and shack and bathrooms separate from shack almost interchangeably. So I don't even know what the real proposal is right now. So that's a question.
I'm sorry that wasn't clear in the memo that we wrote to the town manager. Our ideal would be a joint concessions and bathrooms building. Now, there are other alternatives out there. We're not, as Darcy mentioned, we're at the beginning of the process, but that would be an ideal alternative from the Parks and Rec and Little League community.
Right. And then my other question, and then I'll let it go at that. The town is the applicant, right? So who in the town is actually the applicant?
I can answer that. So me, yeah, I'll be the applicant for the application. The important to note, if the building is technically under 400 square feet, it's just a building permit. So that's a ministerial permit. It does not go through design review. So in essence, what you're going to be seeing is a town capital improvement program project, which is essentially what this will become when it goes back to council to get like their stamp of approval through a resolution, adding it to the town CIP and designating budget for it. So with the town CIP, I just want to emphasize that's sort of what you'll be seeing, that project, but the final decision maker is the town council when they approve the plans to go out to bid for construction. So just want to emphasize there may or may not be an actual planning application that's discretionary for which you to actually take action. You may just be functioning in an advisory role to the town council.
And that was why I asked who in the town would be the applicant, because if you can't be the judge and the jury and the plaintiff and the defendant all at once. So if, for example, this has to go to one of your I'm sure you've thought this all through, one of your branches. Which hat are you gonna wear and when are you gonna wear it? For example, if it needs a permit because it happens to be in the setback.
Yeah, so for the purposes of this discussion, I recommend we steer away from actual type of potential land use application that may be before you and just focus on the three options that will come at a future date. I can tell you, this will definitely require a building permit. So for example, the town is required to follow the California building codes, get a building permit as long as it's over 120 square feet, which it likely will be. And then we're the applicant for the building permit. The permits may seem odd, but issued to ourselves, and we go through the inspection process and get a final. But we would also be the applicant, for example, for PG&E permits, West Valley sanitation permits, other agency permits who have discretion over this.
Thank you.
With respect to the snack shack that's currently in the setback, is there anything known about the history of that in terms of when it was built and what happened at the time? Was the scenic setback in place? And or just the second part of the question, what is the current status? Is it like a non-conforming structure or, yeah, that's.
So as far as we know, it looks like it was built sometime in the 70s. It's about 50 years old, but we can't find any town documentation. If you will, I went through started by trying to work with Terrence and Emily to find any information and history. It is on one of the Ford Field renovation plans, it shows there, but we knew it was there at that point in time. And in terms of, I think, Darcy, you mentioned is it a non-conforming use structure?
Well, there's a distinction between those two. I believe we have confirmed it's a non-conforming structure. And I will say that it's likely that that era didn't need a building permit based on the size or the building code. Again, right now, the building code don't need a permit under 120 square feet, but it might have been different back then. The use, so it's an interesting use in a town park, but it has been there for so long that, yeah, if the use was ever questioned, it would be grandfathered. And the reason I mentioned the use is that we've got a park and there's some food vending. So it's just an interesting use. This is, again, a open space area in a park. So we will be looking into that specific use at a later date.
Thanks, that's all.
I do have some history when the shack was moved in 1986 to kind of answer Ronnie's question, but I can. Oh, I'm sorry. I did find some history on the shack. I can save that for later, but I just wanted to answer this. In 1986, the ACC did approve the relocation of the snack shack. I didn't find anything other than that, but that was kind of interesting that it did go through a process and in the record, there's no information, either that or the council, any discussion on that. I had a very minor question. What is that blue thing on the side of the shack?
So that looks like it's a donation box, and I don't know why it's there, but Steve, I'm going to let Steve, any question about Little League or what's going on at Ford, we're going to let our expert speak.
It's storage. So with the third-party catering team that comes out and handles the concessions and the cooking of the food, I understand that they store the Cracker Jacks and cookies, et cetera, because if they stayed inside of the shed, prone to having creatures get in there and eat them up. So that's what I understand. Storage. They bring, it's warming, yeah. There's a barbecue pit on the back side. No, yeah, there's no stove or anything inside of the shack.
heard something a little bit different because I happened to be out there and ran into Scott. And we understood it to be for donations. And when you open the box, you can see bags full of stuff, but it didn't look like Cracker Jacks or food. I mean, it would be very easy for me to take the bags out and actually tell you at another meeting.
We will check into it. I do know that there is a box inside the shack that has snacks in it that are, it's a, like a rodent-proof big black box as well.
I just have a couple of simple questions, I guess, is, the shack, I have to say, I've never really noticed it driving by. I'm not a regular Ford Fields person. So I think that's a positive, in terms of the size and the color. I do notice the outhouses. That's a real eyesore. So I guess, do you have the outhouses? Yeah, part of it. Did you have any photos of that? You showed us the photos from the parking lot, but that's not what you see driving down Alpine Road, which is what is really the meaningful piece of maintaining the corridor, I think. So in my view is, and I might have been missing this, is that it hasn't been an eyesore to the corridor.
May not be the best picture, but on slide 4, and you guys have black and white copies. And you know what? I think that there was some trimming that went on recently, but this is, did I share my screen? No. Well,
Yeah, I see that here.
But hang on, let me share my screen.
Yeah,
And you can see, this is
it's
actually,
noticeable.
this is taken not from the road. I wasn't standing in the road taking the picture. I'm on the path. So it's a little bit closer than what you'd see
Right.
as you're driving down the road.
Quite hidden. Yeah. Did you seriously consider, just fixing that up with a coat of paint and fixing that building and then doing the bathrooms, which seems like the larger need? I assume like you could have a community project almost of, okay, let's see what we can do to fix this snack shack.
That's a great question. And the snack shack definitely needs updating, and it doesn't even have a concrete slab underneath it. So what would happen if we were to update the snack shack is it would not conform to that 50% rule. And then it would be treated as a brand new development. It needs so much work. Oh, go ahead, Darcy.
Yeah, well, so there are things that are exempt from building permits, very simple things like painting. That's about it. Maybe some tiling inside, but otherwise under provided it's based on size, needs a building permit. And then as Karen said, and our architect Carter War knows, you need a building permit, and that would then trigger upgrades. We could have a structural engineer look at it and determine, but the lack of a foundation right now and the age of it probably means, to be honest, you're tearing it down and rebuild. Now that doesn't mean you couldn't potentially rebuild it in its place with the same footprint. We will look at that. But there are things that we would want to make sure are in there for sanitary reasons, namely a sink. And I don't think it has a sink right now, right, Steve? No sink? No. So we just would want to take a careful look at it. But there are some provisions. That's why we asked the non-conforming building question, because there are some provisions for replacing a building in that same location that we need to look at. But this is weeding into what would help us is I think it's already on the list of things we're looking at. So we'll just have to continue down that path. But we are definitely looking at 2 separate buildings, and we're looking at the cost of them separately. Because again, the main user of the bathroom is the entire town. The main user of the shack which we'll just keep calling it that, um, is the Little League. And they, as Steve said, have a concessionaire that they use right now. So it's important that we look at both of those separately, even if they were combined, that we look at the costs separately. But we are, as a result of some more recent conversations, now looking at them being separate, looking at rebuilding the shack in its existing location, maybe moving the bathroom to a different location, et cetera.
Thank you.
So what would help us is if this creative group can think of anything else outside the box that we haven't thought about. And don't tell me a 2-story building. Okay, we're not gonna do the bathroom with the snack shack on top with little stair you climb, but other ideas are appreciated. And no tree houses, okay? Do not tell us to put it up in the trees.
Town manager, I appreciate setting me up right outside of the 2-story outhouse, so. I'm unclear why it makes a difference if this is a town capital improvement project versus any other kind of project. I don't know if we want to save that for another day or if we.
Well, I'll just tell you, we are treating it as if it was I want to say a private development project, but if this requires a design review application, if this requires the V word, the variance, or a general plan amendment, we will look at that and present it to the appropriate decision-making bodies when the town comes. We believe it is important to follow our own codes. There could be discretion there. I'm not your town attorney, but I will just tell you that it's always good to model good, appropriate behavior that we would want the public to follow. We do that with our town center, for example. And we certainly need to follow CEQA and other state laws that apply to us. And again, go through the process with other agencies to get permits. But it's just a little premature without knowing exactly what we're doing. But that's partially why I gave you the handout for tonight, which was generously prepared by Open Space Committee Chair Betsy Morgenthaler. And that's the handout that highlights the town's general plan provisions that apply to this and also our municipal code provisions.
Is there an issue regarding earthquakes and fault lines on road that we should be thinking about as well?
We will look at those. I think since this isn't a habitable building for humans, please don't tell me again to put like sleeping quarters or tents there. There are less stringent rules related to non-habitable structures. But of course, we don't want the building shaking and causing any damage. We want to, let's hope we can build a building that lasts for 65 years.
So respectfully, do we know if this is in a fault line area? Or
I'm pretty sure it's outside the Alquist-Priella fault zone. That said, the Geologic Safety Committee is right now entertaining, updating like the town maps. And I've been told there are faults that are not on that map. So
No faults currently mapped on this site.
yeah, yeah.
From the ASCC standpoint, do you guys have any questions? Go ahead, Gina.
I don't have a lot of questions, but one thing that hasn't come up but was sort of mentioned as an eyesore are the trash cans. Is there any sort of plan or thought that those would be addressed in some way?
I think we need to figure out what we're doing and where, and then we can address the trash can situation. We have asked the town engineer about dumpster, like maybe one dumpster instead of 3 trash cans, and he was checking into the costs of that. But we kind of have to decide some of the bigger things and then get down to the trash can level.
But it would be part of the,
Even be like a built-in on the side of the shack or something that would make it blend in with the building.
sure. And then just a question about the precast structure. Um, I know you're just throwing that out as a possible idea, but is that something, is the idea that it's open air? It kind of looks like from the image that kind of at the top of the building that it's open. And, or is there a desire that it's more fully enclosed? And I don't know if that matters. I mean, maybe if it's a little more open air, it is less visually impactful, but
So I would say that's a great question. I think, I think they have a lot of different options.
mhm.
So we would have to go back and check. That's a detail that we haven't gotten into the details of the,
Sure,
everything about the building,
sure.
you know.
I didn't know if there was a desire though, if the idea was, oh, it's nice if it's a little more open or fully enclosed.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, of one building. It's easier to hide one building. And this footprint, I think it was 18 by 17 or thereabouts, roughly 17 by 20. That's a lot easier to hide than two separate buildings of somewhat similar size. And we do have a bit of a green screen. With the exception of the recent trimming, it kind of takes some of the dead undergrowth away from those trees. It had been pretty filled in for the last few years.
I think we're talking about questions. here.
Oh, sorry. So are there multiple designs on one building versus two buildings?
There are, and actually, when we were talking with the manufacturer, the ones they listed on their site, we went back to the rep and said, we want the smallest footprint you can give us. And he came back and said, we built this one, because remember, these things are like all pre-built. So, but they had that design that they could fit together for us. So that was the smallest footprint that had 2 bathrooms and a concessions.
And it still meets all the ADA requirements and it's been tested?
Yes, it's fully ADA compliant.
Deanna?
Well, my big thing is that I don't want to see the town exempt itself from its own design processes. And given that this is a capital improvement project, all the stuff that I'm getting on these yellow sheets, it looks like it's doable within the general plan. And in doing, and Nicholas, we talked the other night about a general plan amendment. So I think if we wanted to keep the buildings closer out by Alpine, which I think are less visible out there, I really want to explore whether or not this is possible, whether we can put them out there, given the general plan. So that's kind of where I hope we're going, with the planning commission to understand that. That's kind of my main concern.
That's not a question.
I know.
I think, Nicholas, I don't have any questions, so I think, we should, solicit public input at this point. What do you think?
Always a good idea.
So, anybody here in the room other than Betsy? Yes. Come on up.
It's to a question.
Less on the project, more on Linda's question about, or comment about being the judge and jury. Who was the applicant for the town center? Because it seems like the same opportunity.
It was the town council, as far as I,
Yeah, I'll just say sometimes it's the architect who applies for a big project, but here it'd probably be me because, I mean, someone does sign an application, but for a large project, an architect is, for example, Carter serves, they talk before the group and they kind of show you the pictures and go along. But for a project this small, I doubt it.
okay.
I I think he'd be careful about that on his insurance policies.
So,
It's me. Okay. I'll sign it.
But-
I'll take the policy.
to that question, Patty's also on the historical committee of Portola Valley, so we're going to check into that and see how the town did.
Okay, other public comment? Darcy, are there people online? Any hands up?
Yeah, actually, two people. Let's go with Christy Corley.
Hi, all. Thanks for the hard work on that presentation. I think it's really well done. I'm a resident of 25 years and I've been speaking about getting a bathroom at this location for quite a while. I did want to say I like the back-to-back design of the snack shack with the bathroom. And it was really emphasized last meeting how important that snack shack is. They have them at high schools. We need it. They're at all other Little League fields. We cannot go without a snack shack, is my opinion. It brings the parents together who work, in the snack shack or in front of the snack shack as they eat. On another note, if a bathroom's needed on this side of the Alpine Road, we are forced to go into restaurants and use their restrooms. And I think we need a public, nice restroom on this side of town. I feel strongly about that. I also would assume that any type of facility would offer water. And I think water and hand washing is very important for sanitary reasons. I'm going to add something else, and I know you won't want to hear this, but I did drive someone home once that had heat exhaustion. So I'm all for more benches along Alpine Road Trail for those that want to rest. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Next.
Thank you.
Hi, Betsy.
Hello, Betsy Morgan Thaler here. I'll speak as quickly as I can from my prepared remarks. I wanted to start by making use of the old construction adage. You can have fast, you can have cheap, you can have high quality, pick one. Well, we know that we want it fast. And that factor seems to be the driver here because we want to take advantage of the 180,000 otherwise vanishing state dollars. We're genuinely time constrained. We have only 2 years. We want it cheap. In previous presentations, this is the factor I've heard cited as a rationale for locating the proposed new construction inside the scenic corridor location. The commissioners are going to have to weigh short-term cost saving of about 37 additional linear feet of sewer and electrical lines. Maybe that's going to cost an extra $5,000 against the longer-term cost of not respecting amongst the most protective rural features in our general plan and municipal code. Third, we want quality. An important aesthetic consideration, siting has been cited as reason to locate the proposed new construction further from the field and closer to Alpine Road and inside our 75-foot scenic corridor. Some embedded value judgments amount to where you're seated when you decide to make that call. Are you in a car or are you on the baseball bleachers? Are you on a bike, on a horse, or on foot? But from which aesthetic point of view was the general plan written? And are we now rethinking that perspective? A second aesthetic consideration is sizing. We currently have a 103 square foot grandfathered snack shack. We are looking at something that is 3.4 times that. And will that be hard on the eyes wherever we place it? Writ large, 2025 has been a year of the unprecedented. And I think precedent matters. I think there is a way forward, a win-win for Portola Valley. I'd like to work in concert with the town and my Parks and Rec colleagues over there to achieve the achievable. 2 ADA and scenic corridor setback compliant flush toilet bathrooms. Consider the Portland Loo, and that's in your documentation today, as one of the options, as it answers many of our needs. Let's get going on that. And then let's use the appetite and the remaining funds for improving conditions at the existing snack shack, tackling the remedial repairs up to the 49.9% the Muni Code allows for non-conforming structures. I'd start with a rat slab, for instance, and change out some of the worst of the dry rot. And at least we'd buy ourselves another decade and maybe not a headache. We just might be able to have our Cracker Jack and eat it too. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have 2 speakers online. Okay. Oh, let's do the room first then.
Good evening. I'm Nona Chariello and I live on Riverside Drive. I'd like to comment from a conservation perspective. In any open space that is heavily used by people, public hygiene and environmental health are connected. I am fully in support of installing flush toilets at Ford Field. It is long overdue and it will benefit people and the environment. But the solution also needs to consider the 75-foot scenic setback and what trees can and should grow there. The redwoods at Ford Field were planted about 5 decades ago, likely to provide fast-growing screening. They also have shallow, interconnected roots that grow a long distance from the trunk. They don't have a taproot, and drought stress has made irrigation necessary at Ford Field. Climate change is likely to exacerbate this. To better understand how the redwoods are doing, this week I repeated part of a tree survey conducted by Carducci and Associates for the town in 2011. Using their map, I relocated and remeasured all 24 redwoods and 1 Catalina ironwood that they mapped between the entrance to Ford Field and the bleachers that are closest to the center field line. That area includes the snack shack. 5 of the redwoods had 2 trunks, so in total there were 29 redwood trunks in this area of the Carducci map. I found that roughly a third of the redwood trunks, 9 out of the 29, have been cut down and are now stumps. In the 2011 survey, their trunks averaged 15 inches in diameter. The other 2/3 of the redwood trunks are still standing. In 2011, their average diameter was 15 inches as well, and has increased now to an average of 22 inches. But of the standing trunks, 1 is dead with no green foliage at all, and 2 are clearly stressed. The redwoods at Ford Field provide many ecosystem services: shade and cooler microenvironments, tempered wind speeds, and screening. But their shallow roots make them vulnerable not only to drought, but also to trenching and excavation. In connection with planning for flush toilets, which I do completely support, I believe it's time to consider introducing more drought-adapted trees such as coast live oaks. And so I urge that the Conservation Committee be included in the planning for Ford Field, not just updated or informed. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? And we'll go to online.
I'm trying to get Judy Murphy to talk.
Here I am. Thank you. I absolutely support these new bathrooms. Realistically, tonight you're focusing on possible location. So I'm not going to talk about, I have thoughts about design, but I'll hold that because I'm certain that we'll have chances to weigh in later about design. The only thing I'd say now is I don't want us in the early plans to skimp on either the function or the aesthetics of this thing. We're going to be raising a lot of money in the town and we can afford to do it well, not just do some bare bones thing to be able to flush a toilet. Realistically, the choice of site is between the current location, which is a little variable, and number 3, the one that meets the setbacks, both scenic and riparian, along the third baseline there. The one that's along the first baseline just has so many negatives that it seems like it's in there just to be, so we can have 3 choices, and isn't very realistic at all. My main point is I really want to urge you not to take lightly the scenic corridor rules. Those rules are there for reasons. I don't believe the scenic corridor rules were designed just for hillside views, for the view shed, for the vistas. Otherwise, there would have been no need to have it apply on both sides of the road, on Alpine or Portola Road, and clearly it does. So the scenic corridor is more than being able to look at the hills. It's being able to have that rural feeling as you go down the road. So I think we should respect that. We expect our residents to abide by the rules. The town should follow its own rules. It's very hypocritical. I know that legally you don't have to because you're the entity that's doing it, et cetera. So there's lots of little ways around it. But basically, they're the rules that everyone else has to follow, and I think we should too. To say it, look, we want to do it in the corridor because it looks better in the corridor than out of the corridor. Those are all reasons. If someone, an applicant in town had those reasons, you would say, sorry, these are the rules. And my concern about putting things where the snack shack is, that close to the road, is that if you think long-term, if that road gets widened, I heard what Karen said about it would still be okay, but it would be okay right on the edge of the road. So it would meet some legal rule, but it would be ugly as hell. And there wouldn't be room to screen it in the way that you can currently screen. Thank you very much. Big decisions ahead.
Thank you, Judy. Next,
Okay, next we have David Cardinal.
go ahead, David.
Great, thanks as always. I have a few possibly helpful thoughts. First of all, I think the idea is great, which I said before. I do think we need to make sure that we're budgeting to maintain it properly, because a not maintained bathroom isn't much better than a porta potty. I also think that I've changed my opinion. I thought the snack shack could be rebuilt where it is. But I think maybe since recent tree trimming, it is apparent how close it is to the road. So if we can get it to where the porta potties are, it's very hard to believe that anybody's going to object to replacing porta potties. So I don't know the economics of that, but that would be a thought. I also think that we could make it kind of an interesting building, like we could have the school kids paint a woodsy mural on the side, all the sides really, but the side near the road. I'm not sure we've been super creative about that. So I think that's a nice thing. I'm also a little bit embarrassed for our town. We are arguably the second or third richest town in the US, or maybe not the planet. And we have a lot of insanely rich people, and we're scrambling for pennies on the dollar. And I kind of get that in a way, but it's kind of embarrassing that we're having this discussion about money on this and other matters. So I don't know, the people who aren't donating aren't listening tonight, but I had to say that. So that's a thing. I also, bigger picture, the scenic corridor, I think, is a good idea, but you can put a parking lot in the scenic corridor, but not a building, which means for people who think we should have one of those bucolic European downtowns, they all have little buildings in the front and parking in the back. And so, sorry for like my personal interjection, but longer term, I think that's something to worry about. So thanks. That's what I had to say, and I think it's great we're doing this.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else? Okay. So let's bring this back for discussion.
Why don't we start with the planning commission? I think that probably it makes sense just to do this in a serial way. If we can put the image of the relocations and we can speak to it, that helpful. Following that part of, so okay, we take it.
Absolutely, please.
Can't hear,
And there may be
can't
some
see.
following that, there may be some discussion that we'd want to have among the two commissions, and perhaps ending up with a straw poll, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sounds good.
And if we get to close to the end and a straw poll doesn't make sense, we'll take that out as well. Commissioner Brothers, would you like to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was thinking you were going to go all the way left to right, so I was still gathering my thoughts, but let me pull a few things together here for you. From my perspective, building in the scenic corridor is just the most unimaginable thing that could be involved here if you're starting anew. I might have a little more flexibility if you were going to try to remodel the shack, and that it is existing. And yes, there's 50% rules and a variety of different code sections, but some version of that might work for me. But anything new in the 75-foot corridor to me just is completely a non-starter, especially if it's a project that the town together. Then every single time we get something before any of our commissions, they're going to say, well, the town did it. So I just, that's my absolute starting point. Secondly, you have the money for the bathrooms, and I understand the need for the shed, and you've done a lot of work, and I've spent many happy days as a kid at baseball diamonds in the Bay Area, not at this one, and know how important those little shacks are, as well as the bathrooms, even as a kid. But somehow or other, I'm feeling a little pressured here. You have the money for the bathrooms, which is what's pushing your time, but then you're also trying to use this as an opportunity to bring in the shed and sort of leverage it. I understand the need for the shed, but I guess I'm trying to differentiate there. You have the money, you could go to the bathrooms tomorrow and we could have a really clean, clear project coming forward tomorrow, as I understand it. I see Karen reaching for her microphone. Maybe I misunderstood.
We do have the $180,000 grant. We think that with the installation, the infrastructure, and all of that, so that we'll probably need, we don't know, but it's probably $400,000 to $500,000 total.
Even if you're just doing the bathrooms?
So the sewer, and my understanding is sewer hookups and doing anything with the electrical lines in PG&E can be quite expensive. But until we know where we're putting it, we don't know what those expenses are. And I think you guys, some of you on this panel, will have a much better understanding of what those costs might be, and maybe you can share your perspective on that.
Understood. But I think just give reasonable consideration to moving forward as quickly as you can with the bathroom. I think nobody can deny the need for bathroom. A sort of ancillary point there is, I've read somewhere where the other reason we need these is for all the bicyclers, and I see that I haven't seen anything in here about you trying to obtain money from bicycle clubs. There have been organized rides through town, supposed to be permitted. I don't know if they pay for those permits, but it seems to me that I've seen people get off their bike and use the trees at the Triangle Park on more than one occasion. So that does seem like a source of money for you. Thirdly, I guess these are sort of in no particular order. I was looking at in the package we got, which was the package that went to the town council. There's the one-page attachment that Jeremy Dennis signed about the grant from the department. This is page 19 of what I assume is a larger agreement. Do you know what year that larger agreement was written? Was it also written in 2021, or is it an earlier agreement?
2021.
So this is a page out of a 2021 agreement.
Yes. The application for the grant.
Well, the reason I'm asking is on the recordation for this property, there's a document, an agreement with the same Department of Parks and Recreation, and it was for a smaller grant. And that on our property, I didn't see a later document on the property with this department, but that initial 2011, I'm going through my notes here trying to figure it out, document continues till 2030, and it was for a much smaller grant. And there's a list of conditions in that document with the Department of Parks and Recreation. And so my real question here is, are we complying with all of those conditions? And those conditions related to how we use the property, what the uses are made of the property. And on that point, one thing that you didn't mention today, and I don't know where the town council went on this, was the town council, I believe, did some rezoning in this area, which would probably violate some of these agreements. So maybe you can fill me in on what they did for the housing element.
Yeah, there was no rezoning of this particular site. There's a note that was added in the zoning code for this site.
Okay, thank you.
And with respect to the deed restriction on the grant, the 2013 project, 2012, 2013, it does go to June of 2031. And we need to be using the field with as we spent the funds for, which was the updating and upgrading of the field and the backstop and the batting cages and all of that.
So this is a separate agreement, but we're
That
still
is
in compliance.
that is a different agreement. The one from 2013 was the $232,000 grant. This is the one from 2021 or early 22 for $180,000. That project cost over $500,000, the one in 2012 or 13.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's surprising to me that there's a recorded document with the Department of Parks and Rec, and then there are subsequent documents that aren't recorded and don't seem to reference back to that recorded document. So it raises questions to me about the property uses and all of the conditions under those grants. I guess my final question is the conservation easement when this property was granted to purchased by the town, which says that you're not allowed to move 5 cubic yards. And I mean, I know that's a ways down the line here, but how are you going to do this construction without moving 5 cubic yards? Have you thought that through?
Well, I think you're looking at that conservation easement from the sale of the property in 1971. I looked at that too, and I thought that if I looked at the exhibits correctly, it's only for that driveway. It's that easement to the driveway to nowhere, over to the property in Santa Clara. If you look at the
I
exhibits.
know what you're saying. I didn't read it that way.
Well, if you look at Exhibit B, it says dotted line shows the area, and it's that easement. But I think we need to have somebody else look at it as well.
Yeah, because I think that could be a bit of a constraint.
If I could help, because I have a little more information and understanding. There were mutual cross easements, to each side of the creek, between the two sides. It was the grading limitation, and the tree protection, it was really about, essentially the creek banks, so those couldn't be altered by either side. Because, the property on the other side owns the conservation easement on the town side, and the town owns the conservation easement on the other side.
I looked at this pretty carefully, but I didn't do the mets and bounds, so it could be. But I think a lawyer needs to look at that carefully.
The meets and bounds don't actually accurately represent where the property lines are anymore, because the defining line is the county line, which changes yearly, based on the center line of the creek.
I guess if you did go ahead with something that ended up being in the scenic corridor, it seems to me you need to think about how you're going to permit that. And it looks to me, on a brief look this afternoon, like that's a conditional use permit. So I don't want to get way ahead of things here, but to me, that's just another point that I wanted to make with my first point, which is, for me, it's a non-starter to be building something new in the scenic corridor. I think I'll stop at that. Those are general comments, and my earlier question to you about the town council, I don't have anything I say be taken as a yes or a no, or an agreement or a disagreement, but basically those are the questions that I have right now. Thank you.
So I support both the bathrooms and the snack shack parts of the project. I also support combining them into one building. That I think is probably the best overall solution. In terms of location, I guess the location number 2 on the other side of the road bridge easement, I think it would be overall much worse for the view corridor than location 1. So I would rule that one out and not develop it, to develop the concepts further. It's just my opinion on that. So I also think that The current location of the snack shack, the location number 1, makes the most sense. Wouldn't necessarily try to push it into the parking lot. So I'm okay with pursuing location 1 with the understanding that it would be in the view corridor. That being said, I think we should explore, trying to push it back further from the current location of the snack shack more towards where the porta potties are, maybe even, kind of to the corner of the parking lot there. And then in terms of the sort of design proposal, I understand that it's just a sketch and we're pretty far away from having the actual proposal. But I think Planning Commission probably won't be able to comment on it until we get, much further down the line. So just my thoughts on that. So it seems small to me. It's probably the bare minimum to have the 2 stalls. So I think we should target probably something in the range of 3 to 5 toilets. I think probably the way to do that, as long as it's allowed, is I think you could have only 1 ADA, all gender, family room type of bathroom, and then have other stalls which are private, all gender as well, or then have, or else have like male and female restrooms separate from the ADA room that then, have some more accommodations. Consider a bottle filler fountain on the exterior of the building. And then finally, I think the design aesthetic could be more modern while still being Portola Valley-ish. So I wouldn't necessarily constrain to preconceived notions on that. Personally, I'd prefer something more modern. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, I have a variety of comments. And I appreciate the work of the Open Space Committee and what they did, because some of that feeds into what I will be saying here. But to start out, just that where I am at, I'm in the same place that Linda Brothers is I'm really uncomfortable building in our setback. I think that sets a precedent. And in this case, I'm seeing other options. I'm seeing number 3 to me isn't that much different than number 1. And it's a dirt parking lot. It's not attractive as it is. So why not put a bathroom in there? When I go to many of the open spaces, they have similar parking lots and their bathrooms right there. So I don't see why that would be a big issue. And I also think there might be another location, number 4, further south in the parking lot to look at. So to me, there's an opportunity there that would be conformance to our rules that I would seriously look at. And just to give some context, 'cause I did do some searching to find out, I found something that I thought was quite interesting, that I already referred to the 1986 approval of relocating the snack shack. But a bit more history I found in March 14th Planning Commission, when they're talking about the Alpine Scenic Corridor change. I couldn't find the original Alpine Scenic Corridor declaration, but in 2001, a staff report indicates, I'll read verbatim, it should be pointed out that when the plan for the corridor was originally prepared in 1971, the plan for a divided Alpine road with one direction on each side of Los Trancos Creek and the section from Arastadero Road to Interstate 280. The area between the one direction roads was to become a large public park developed largely for trails with some places to stop and some public recreation facilities. Over the years, the town has deleted the road on the Santa Clara County side and decided not to encourage active use of most of the corridor. The function of the plan, therefore, has changed substantially. The major use of the plan now be indicate the area of the scenic corridor in which all development will be reviewed to determine consistency with the provisions of the element. So when I'm reading this, to me, it seems like whenever the snack shack was approved, we had a different philosophy of the scenic corridor. And now it's more about being a scenic corridor, especially if you had, you can imagine it being just a parklet in the middle between 2 sides of the road. And in regards to evacuation, exactly how we will accomplish that, I think we have a wonderful evacuation study, but we haven't really, it hasn't completely been finalized. So I think we need to keep that also open, not, you know, it's not completely determined. I have a lot of different various thoughts. And when I'm thinking about the sewer, the water, and the power, it's a trench. I don't see how adding a larger trench, maybe it'll interfere with the trees, yeah, a particular tree or something, is going to add that much cost. And I think the bigger cost, and Carter mentioned this in the Open Space Committee, is the ADA compliance. And when I'm thinking about most open space preserves, they end up having to build uh, it's not usually a dirt parking lot. So perhaps there's going to have to be a parking spot for the ADA person to be able to roll their wheelchair out and use that restroom. And so that would need to indicate to be at the restroom needs to be really close to the parking lot. And so that indicates number 3 again. I'm not, oh, and the ADA parking spot needs to be, this is a Google search this afternoon, to be able to be, it probably can't be dirt because the ground needs to be firm, stable, and slip resistant, according to ADA. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, but from what I understand, I'm kind of feeling it needs to be near a good parking lot or a portion of the parking lot. Something else that came up in the open space discussion was I think a lot of the users of the trail are from Ladera and they're probably enjoying being near the creek. So when I'm thinking about the restroom location, I'm not always thinking that they're going to be the ones that we see when we're driving along the road. They're going to be people that are in the back. Won't talk about the food truck. I don't think a food truck would work. I mean, that did not come up today. Oh, there was also some discussion about could the snack shack be used for other users? I think we have a precedent that we have facilities at town that are used by certain groups of people. Because the pickleball people and the soccer people share one closet in the maintenance shed. So I'm comfortable having the snack shack being exclusive. Hot water tank, I think you could probably use on demand. Hot water heater, not that's a big deal. And also in agreement with Gina earlier, I think those trash cans look terrible. Somehow to hide the trash cans. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
My thoughts are that I too am concerned about the scenic corridor and the precedent of building a building right there. I guess I'm along Karen's route, but wherever it's going to be hidden and be most acceptable to the general public driving by, walking by. And I know that that could be in the trees today, maybe that, and it would look worse if it was at number 3 location today, but maybe in 10 or 15 years when those redwoods start having more problems, maybe that's a better long-term solution. So I'm open to either, but I'm concerned about the precedent of being not following our own rules. I'm along with Ronnie in terms of I think the design could be better, you know, more town center looking rather than that. Having said that, I've heard kind of different comments, and my feeling is it shouldn't cost $500,000 to build some tiny little building and a couple of toilets. But you do want to do it right. So you know, I guess it depends how much money can be raised, and you guys have a better idea from the community of, you know, what can be raised. But I would encourage to be creative because there's a lot of different prefab companies out there, and you got, it sounded like one for 228,000. You know, I did some Google searches, and there's, you know, you can buy them for 100,000. So maybe not here, you know, maybe that's in Texas or something. I don't know.
Are you talking about the joint restroom concession building or just the restrooms?
I just did some chat GTP. It said that if you had a 300 square foot building that had this in it and
Okay.
what it was prefab, and they said, what range would that be in? And they popped up a whole bunch of, options. So take it for what it's worth. I would just say be creative. And just an idea, I don't know if other people are using that parking lot. I think Rosati's was using that for their employee parking for a while. So I don't know if it's an option, but maybe there's a source of, asking for some contribution. Maybe there's some deal to be had there. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I just have a couple of items here. One, I'm much more interested in good design than I am in maintaining a particular setback. I think to the extent we can keep ourselves within the setback and not make a modification to the general plan, that's desirable, but design is going to be the key here. I was also taken with Nona's comments about making sure that we've got the Conservation Committee as well as ASCC, who I think are going to be key moving forward. From my perspective at the Planning Commission, I want to make sure that we actually follow the rules and that we're attentive to the fact that this is that a proposal to make a modification to build within the 75-foot setback is not a variance. And I went back and I took a look to see, well, what is this? How did Harder get involved in a variance on ASCC? Yeah. Well, but the issue is the language pertaining to the setback on 35 it is different than the setback requirements, and the amendment process is built in to the setback on 35 as well. So it's like how did a variance happen? And the answer is it's not actually a variance, but there's a set of findings that are built into the code that allow it to happen. Here we're looking at a different process. It's either going to be a general plan amendment, it's going to be potentially a CUP. That's something that we'll need to figure out. I would absolutely not support the town exempting itself from a process. I don't know how you do that in the first instance, and I wouldn't support it even if you could. But to the extent that we can turn this into a design-driven process in a way that honors the language of the GP, of the general plan, I think that we will do well. I'd only like to say one more thing, and that is, to the extent we're going to be doing a project here to address the bathrooms, to address the snack shack, we should also look around at the garbage bins to make sure that those are appropriately handled. And if it's not a drinking fountain, we should have Ronnie's, the water filler on the building and whatever else it is that we might want, so that we can keep ourselves going for the next 65 years. Thanks. With that, Carter.
Thank you. From the ASCC standpoint, can I start with Anna, please?
First of all, the fund.
The funding is going to happen. It is in motion. There's some big donors. So it's all going to work out. that part of it. Number 2 is out, that location. Even for me, number 3, if you put a building there, look at that long stretch of green, and they stick a building in the middle of the parking lot, and I don't think that works. I think, Nona, your comments about landscaping, I think if we can tuck in closer to Alpine Road and re-landscape there, and I think the Portola Valley Garden Club could do that. We could plant a lot of fabulous shrubs there to make those buildings just disappear. When the Neely Barn was first designed, it was in the scenic corridor. And everybody fought that. But in that moment, when you're driving down Portola Road, you would have seen that building for a second. Now you focus on it the whole way that you're driving. So I don't want people to focus on a building. I want to tuck it in, and whatever the design is, I don't care. And I like the idea also, Ronnie, of one ADA, and maybe three little other places, closets where you can go in and be. So I just think it's doable, but I think it should vanish. And I think the only way to vanish is to keep it closer to Alpine Road, where you'd see it for a second and landscape there. So, that's kind of where I'm headed with it. And obviously, I don't think anybody is in favor of number 2. If anyone got near those trees, I would freak. So, I was going to chain myself to the trees if there was ever that land was ever going to be developed. So, I feel that openness from 2 all the way through the parking lot. And I think we just stick those little buildings off to the side. So I want to hear what you guys have to say, but that's kind of where I'm headed with this thing. And I do think that there's a process that we could do this with the general plan. I'm a general planist. That's my thing. But I think that the best solution for this thing is closer to Alpine. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with, with what you're saying, Dana. I also think, on the topic of precedent, I think it's important. I mean, I'm an architect. I love precedent, especially when I'm trying to get something done. But I also think, it's an extremely constrained property. I mean, we're not even looking at the version of this that shows the scenic corridor overlaid and the creek setback, which leaves us with kind of nothing that's actually in compliance with what is allowed. And so, I think, the town probably historically has and will have to make exceptions when, there are circumstances that don't allow for, the use or need of a property. And so, I feel like that's the case here. I think we're all in agreement that we need the bathrooms. I do also agree with Ronnie and Doug that it feels like 2, I know you, not to beat your preliminary proposal to death, but it feels like there would be a need for more. 2 just doesn't feel like enough. So, it seems, the footprint is potentially larger, but it feels like the need is really there. And again, I don't want to minimize the importance of the view corridor because it is really important, but I think I agree with Dana that, if we can nestle it in and it could be some really nice piece of architecture, it could be something that, yeah, you just sort of glimpse and you're looking past as opposed to staring at. I think I think it's number 3 that's in the middle of the parking lot. The other thing just to think about, if we put it in the middle of the parking lot or we slide it back, if there's still going to be cars driving around there, the thought of people's children, dashing in there, going to the bathroom, running out, and there not being any sort of thought around safety with that and children using the bathrooms, I think it doesn't want to be close there, but there should be, paths where cars aren't driving, where you're going in and out of the bathrooms, because kids are not always thinking and paying attention as they're, trying to get back into the swing of things with the game. The other thing I'll also say is the trenching costs, the PG&E, the sewer hookups. I mean, I just would not underestimate the magnitude of that cost if we're, I mean, no one's really proposing it, but if we're really going to pull off the view corridor, I mean, the proposals that we see come in with the trenching costs for PG&E, I mean, they're in the tens to sometimes they're over $100,000 to do these things. So it's not negligible cost. And, same with the sewers. I've seen proposals recently that are shockingly high. So I just want to point out that I don't think it's a minimal cost, as we increase in length, the labor costs as well as just incurred fees associated with that are really huge. So those are my comments.
Lance?
I did have one more, sorry.
Go ahead.
I know, excuse me. It's interesting because when I was reading the general plan versus the municipal code, it almost seems like the municipal code felt more restrictive with no latitude. And so I know we were talking about a potential general plan amendment, but I would think it feels like there's probably some municipal code modification that maybe needs to be made unless it's tackled with the conditional use permit section. But anyway, just my
Okay.
2 cents on that.
Go ahead, Lance.
I wouldn't minimize the utilities and the cost of the trenching, both the sewer or the PG&E. I've seen a number, 130-foot PG&E run at $110,000 for a recent build here in town. It's crazy. And the bigger piece with PG&E is the wait. To get your plans back from PG&E can take up to a year. They're really backlogged. I did a project a year and a half ago. It took 14 months to get my plans back. So let's not minimize that. I spent a lot of time on Ford Field, so I do have a bit of a bias. And item replacement 3 would be kind of like the equivalent of having a golf course with a great fairway view, and right behind the green is a big toilet structure. It just doesn't work very well for the people in the stands, and it doesn't, I think, present well. I'm with Dana, trying to find a way to screen with green. And maybe we don't have the right trees there. Maybe we know more about what's better there now than 25, 30 years ago when those were planted, and we can address that. But it's about time. We have to get it done. And if we want perfect, we won't make it on time. We won't. And I think we can find a small building. And I think we need to not forget about the ADA and the exposure that we have for the traveling lawyer carnival that goes around looking for ADA monies. So whatever we need to do so that we don't hang ourselves, trip, on the ball field, so to speak, with the ADA, let's take the time and get it done right the first time so that we don't have that brick hanging over our head of litigation. And if that's 2 ADA toilets, then, and this one, I guess I said has been tested. So we know that it stood up. This design that they found, I'm sure there's others, has been tested. Let's take that for some, somebody else's learning that we can profit from and maybe avoid. But screen with green, and I think 1 building is better than 2. And I think if we can catch the snack shack and bring that into fold, even if we move it a little bit more towards 1 and toward the brown, then I think that's a win. But I do know that when I was on the board of Little League, when that field was renovated in 2013, there is a tremendous amount of pipes and wires all coming off that main panel on the backside of the snack shack that we'd have to work around. So that's more money, more time. Thanks.
Okay, I'll try to, wrap up what I think I've, started to hear and give my opinion to. So I'll start with my opinion. I think, I know the need, is there. I frankly think there's more need, and, some of the things that I think about as I think about, public works opportunity, as I think that this is an opportunity, that should be answered in a significant way. Not that it's significant in size, but it's significant in its improvement to the lifestyle. I do think that the process needs to look for the right solution. There are a lot of competing elements, both from a conservation standpoint, from a use standpoint, from an open space, standpoint. And I think that what it needs to do is consider the opportunity to be wonderful, to be intersectional, that, could give more purpose, to, this larger park area, to the area that I think is the field alongside, Dwight, Crowder, Trail, and the wonderful trees, that I believe should be, preserved. I think there's an opportunity to make something awesome, rather than just functional. I do agree, with some of the comments about fundraising, that when a good idea comes together, that can make people inspired to do something truly great, the money will happen. I think this is a place that has created mountains of love, over the 65 or so years, that it's been there. And I wouldn't jump, to any one conclusion. I've liked what I've heard, from the administration, about, retaining expert design, to come up with an expert solution. I've been uncomfortable for decades, about the relationship of the parking lot to the field. I think that, some kind of a buffer zone, will improve the aesthetics and the function of the field. I also, think the informal nature of the parking lot can have some levels of efficiency, but if there was more design, an organization to that, I think you could end up with as many or more spaces, than you have, in its undesigned informality. So I wouldn't rush, to a solution. I think that there's probably ways, to deal with, the grant. I don't think the grant is going to go very far. I do think that it's real money, but I don't think that it's going to fund, even a significant portion, of the project. I think that some of the utility costs, could potentially eat up nearly all of that, because we are finding that utility costs, have become astronomical, and they're less, about length, and they're more about just the fact that you're doing it. So from this ASCC, commissioner standpoint, I think, take an opportunity to dream some. and to do something better than what you would do if you just had $180,000. Because I think that, between the landscaping, the parking rearrangement, you could end up with a design that fully complies, with, the setbacks. So I wouldn't start, with where it goes. I would start with what you want it to accomplish and what the opportunities are.
He drew it this evening. It's right here. It's really quite extraordinary to put this somewhere. Great looking. Through the building.
Yeah, and it's got, anyway, naming opportunities and,
But what, this is gonna be like the Carter War
no.
bathroom.
And
This-
it won't be the first public bathrooms that we've done in parks.
Whoever donates the most gets their name the biggest on the bathroom wall.
So I don't know if there's a, I think that from a summary standpoint, what I've heard is that there is not much appetite, for, violating the front yard setback. Unless, it produces something superior. I think that, there was probably an intersection that said that the site two, has potential problems. Site three, was the most voted on if there was a straw poll. And we can have the straw poll if you want. And there was 100% support, on, the program.
You took us back to the beginning. You made any progress this evening?
I don't know. What do you think, Chairman?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have made progress. I love the idea of having an awesome bathroom. And, but I think what this speaks to is this is an awesome piece of land. This is the gateway to the town, and we should make sure that what we build is something that we're going to be proud of. And that rushing, Carter, I agree with you. I think others have said it as well. That chasing $180,000 and getting an inferior product is not what we should be doing. And we should recognize that we have a 65-year timeframe that we're designing for, and that we should give this project the respect that it needs, that you brought this forward. And maybe the answer is that the 180K was kind of the kickstart that we needed to get us together and for you to pull us together and to tee this up so that we can do something on this awesome piece of property. Going through here, and I'm now off-roading from suggestions, I think that probably charrettes are going to be important here. So there's actually visualization of what it is that we are buying, what we're going to be doing, making sure that, Ronnie gave you a hard time about your bottles, but the point, that the fact is, Carter, you also called it out, is that we shouldn't have a unitasker here. It should be broadening, it should be generative in its nature, and we shouldn't forget to bring the trash cans in as well. The only thing that I really heard very clearly and unanimously is location two was, I don't know, a straw person. And it's kind of hard to get one's head around that. And also we're looking for consistency in process. I think that that's pretty much what I've heard.
So Carter mentioned doing a straw poll, and I think it would be interesting because we all had wonderful comments and insights and all of that, but is to quickly go through and we can rule out what I heard was rule out number two, but I want to hear, because I heard some people say 1 over 3. I think you're right, there was more 3 over 1, but I also heard, so I'd like to hear I don't know if it was even or not. I'm hearing you guys think the majority 3, but I want to could we just quickly go through just with the numbers? Well, that's fine too.
Different people gave different reasons, and to reduce it to one location to another, I think is the misrepresentation of what a study session is. You're just trying to do, trying to make progress or make a decision, and I think that's a misrepresentation of what a study session is. And I also think it, in a way, discredits some of the language that was made. I think the difference between 1 and 2 is maybe 10 or 20 feet. So a lot of the comments may apply a little bit to some and a little other. That's would be what I heard. It's certainly how I feel.
I'd favor the straw poll. I mean, I guess I feel like, I don't know, Carter and Nicholas kind of made a summary, which I don't know if it really captured what the various commissioners were
What'd we miss?
saying. Well, I heard it differently than what you summarized. I heard more support than 1 for 1 than 3. Okay. But I could be wrong. Or at least maybe not more, but yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree. I have some openness for it, but I don't see it. I see it as the most expeditious, maybe the cheapest, but I'm not sure it's the best.
But Dana was saying it was the best, I think. Well, or just,
Well,
yeah.
Can I ask one more question? I guess, is the next step that there's going to be engagement with design professional? Like what is kind of the next step? Because as someone who is a designer, if someone came to me with 1 and 3 getting fairly equal feedback, maybe I'm developing multiple options and exploring based on that. So I guess I'm not sure. Does it matter that much if there's one or the other? If the idea is like we're trying to create something great and we know, okay, here's this approximate feedback. Maybe it is really important. I just asking a question.
No, I think that's a great question because I think that we need to go to the designer and say, we need to see some designs as the charrettes, we need to really be able to visualize what this would look like. And we need to see options because as we know, not everybody is going to pick the same one probably. So that's where it may come down to. I just felt like I heard a lot and I was trying to see if but I think Linda's point is good, is there's a lot of thought behind 1 or 3 and things change. And I think when we get more information, when we get designs, when we get costs and all of that, that will help us make our decision.
Darcy, is there anything else you wanted to get out of tonight's meeting?
No, other than to say that as Gina Dixon said, the next step is to post an RFP on the town website, hope to hire a landscape architect as the lead, a lot of subs, obviously civil, probably need a utility expert. and then move on to the next stage, which is really, to be honest, site analysis and cost analysis. Because as you pointed out, like the utility costs could escalate rapidly. And then honestly, we would bring that information back to the town council to have them weigh in on all the different options. I think it's too much to try to rank different options because cost is a factor. I mean, you read in the headlines that some of these bathrooms end up being over $1 million. And I'm not saying that we should like cap anything. I just don't want to be in the paper with like the $2 million bathroom. But the utilities are a big concern. Yeah, and shack. We're going to keep calling it a shack. It's going to just have the name of the shack. So that said, we want obviously the cost analysis early up front. So we'll run options forward, and really honestly, there are like 6 different options, right? There's 3 locations. Yeah, maybe one of them's tossed out, but we've talked about renovating the existing building. Is that possible? Doing 2 buildings, is that possible? So each location may have lots of different options, and also throwing in a trash enclosure. Nowadays, those sometimes code compliant, to be honest, become structures with roofs to prevent stormwater runoff. We are near a creek. Anyways, this is getting voluminous. I'm working on the RFP right now. It's already up to like 20 pages, but I hope to get that posted in the next week or 2, give firms 3 weeks to respond, and hopefully get someone under contract by the end of the year.
Can I ask, are there people here who have a very strong opinion as opposed to locations 1 and 3? I'm unclear on what I'm asking is if there are commissioners who are strongly in support of location 1 versus location 3, given the many dimensions of analysis and design that are yet to come. So if somebody is feeling very strongly about 1 or 3, it might be more helpful for those people to actually advocate rather than taking a straw poll.
With about $2,000 of landscaping.
I'm sorry, so Deanna, that's very interesting. Why do you feel very strongly about 1?
I think it's the best location. I think it can be hidden there. And not that it's a wonderful building but if you design a wonderful building, something that we're really proud of, maybe it does go somewhere else. I don't know. But if we're talking snack shack, kind of something that was more minimal, I think 1 was the better location.
Because it can be hidden better?
Yes, it can be hidden better. And also just the moment of driving by, it's just an instant that you see it. Rather than if it's number 3 or number 2, you would be seeing the whole time you're driving down Alpine, the building would be visible.
But you're talking about making location 1.
3, it's sitting at the end of the field. It's bisecting that whole, you said it's like a greenway and a golf. I mean, it's beautiful looking through there. And then you stick a building in the middle of it. That doesn't work for me. But I also think that maybe there's a wonderful building that Carter's been drawing next to me all evening that would change, it would change the whole perspective. So, I feel like I'm back at square one.
We run into a form function thing. We know what the function is. It's quite simple. And maybe we come up with a really great form, in which case we could make it a feature, but I don't think of the toilets in a snack shack as the feature of the ball field. I think what people comment when they would come to the field when I was in the Little League as a parent and a coach was how nice the field was, how pretty it was out there, how it was open and it was a lot of trees and green. And I think one is, now it doesn't have to be where the shack is now, but over that direction, and we could green screen it and find something that blends and hides and doesn't become the main feature, and let the kids in the field and be the feature when you're at the field, looking out at the field. We can find the appropriate greenery to put that in there. We could even do a little bit of mounding. There was long talk about putting some mounding in front of the shack between the outfield fence and which provides spectator viewing area. Just some mound up some dirt. Right now they use the picnic tables, which were donated by an Eagle project by a player. People sit on those to watch from the outfield now. But it'd be very easy to, I think, turn number 3, the toilet becomes the main feature.
Number 1, from the point of view of the users of the also beneficial. Is what
Yes, yeah, I think so. You put toilets right in the middle. I mean, there's a lot of kids that aren't going to want to walk into the toilet in front of the entire field of people. And then they're modest about that perhaps, but thanks.
Can I provide some support for number 3? When I'm driving by, I can see 1 and 3 would be just as well screened. I'm really struggling with how, when you're driving by, what I notice is the high fence. That's what distracts me because that does not seem natural. And the thing is, if I was watching a game from the bleachers, I would be seeing all those cars in that parking lot, and that is so unnatural. And so if there's a bunch of cars and some large, heavy trucks, the bathroom isn't going to be that big. I'm struggling a little bit seeing how that couldn't also be screened. So that's my support for number 3.
Ronnie?
I have a bias towards 1. I agree with Dan and Lance's comments, but I don't feel super strongly about it. I think 3 is acceptable as well.
Doug?
What is the distance between 1 and 3? It seems not very far to me. Probably 30 feet. I guess my feeling is that we should make a nice building or come up with a design and they should move it around and we should look at those and say, okay, and probably end up somewhere in between 1 and 3. And I think it's a small distance. I think we should figure out what needs to be built and then use the schematics to figure out, ideally where it goes.
I stand by my earlier comment that I abhor anything that's in the scenic corridor. I understand all the points about visual and all that stuff, but I don't see why you couldn't move it a little bit. I don't know if it's 1, I don't know if it's 3, I don't know if it's right in the middle of the 2 of those. I don't even know the exact location. Kind of Doug's same point. You don't really know from dots on a map, little balloons like that, exactly where it is compared to reality. I certainly agree with the concept of we don't want some ugly looking, pick your favorite ugly building there. But I think I'm persuaded by Dana's comments about the garden club and making it look appropriate. And to me, either of those locations outside of the scenic corridor that's just the most important point, is to be outside of the scenic corridor.
Well, Carter, like I said, Carter, there's a location 4. With a different building, with a building that's open with 2 things on either end. And I mean, I like this idea of doing a sketch of the building and moving it around.
Exactly.
And
That's the
see
idea
if
of
it
a
works.
study session without trying to reach some consensus.
I agree with Doug. Just in 1 and 3 don't seem that different to me in terms of location, and I would say I would defer to a very talented responder to the RFP, that they can look at that general area and come up with some interesting ideas for us to look at and not over constrain them.
I agree with Dana's comments.
And I also agree. So let's go and wrap this up, the two comments here, and then I want to go firstly check in to see if there's somebody.
You betcha.
Thank you. Sorry, just the one consideration for 3 is its proximity to the fence and the home run balls that come over. So if it was placed at 3, it would really realistically need to be deeper into the parking lot, because if it's a snack shack, it's going to be a congregation area, and kids are getting a lot stronger these days and hit a lot of balls over that fence. And obviously, as you could tell, the distance from home plate to 3 is much shorter than it is from home plate to 1. So more balls are getting hit over there.
I don't think one is accurately located.
It is.
I mean, the snack shack is, you know, about 25 feet further back.
I was just wanting to make one comment that I want us all to keep in consideration, which I know it's on all of our minds, but nobody explicitly called out fire insurance availability. When we're considering siding and we're talking about trying to hide a building, we're thinking about tree cover, and most of us are trying to get trees off our roofs. So I hope that I hear your point about balls, but fire insurance will be a long-term maintenance issue for all of us.
Do we have anybody online?
Nope, nobody's online.
I'd recommend we adjourn then.
Yes, thank you very much. This is incredibly helpful, and it's really good to hear your opinions. As you all know, we're starting the process, and we want you in from the beginning. So there we go. Thank you.
Very much for.
Meeting's adjourned.